Welcome to the Playful Life podcast. I'm your host, Crystal. Growing up, I struggled with my weight, self-confidence, and body image, and like many in my teens, I developed an eating disorder. I battled codependent behavior, and it all affected my mental health. As the years went by, I learned and grew in healing, and I found serenity, really in empowering others to let go of their pasts and to embrace their own leadership in their health and well-being. Now it is my mission as a coach, author, speaker, and podcast host to inspire and empower you to live your best, most playful life. On this podcast, you will hear from our guests about their personal struggles and breakthroughs in their health, careers, and relationships. You'll also receive tips, knowledge, and inspiration to tackle your own health goals and start living the dreams on your heart. Ready? Let's play. Welcome back to The Playful Life. On today's episode, I am interviewing Abigail Vázquez Rosario. And I'm so excited because Abigail is just such a wonderful, talented young woman. She's currently the Miss Maryland Petite, and she's using her title to host the platform of health, higher education, and social justice advocacy, which I'm telling you right now in the world, we need all of those things. She is also a communication and social science major, and she is studying for her social cognition Ph.D. and graduate teaching degree at the University of Maryland. Like, I don't know when this girl has time to sleep or eat or do anything because she is just on the go so much. She's really interested in intercultural communication, media studies, and especially Latinx studies. And her background of being, originally from Puerto Rico and just fitting in a world where higher education was not really ever something in her environment. So for her to aspire to go towards these higher educations and become a teacher herself, she is just really breaking down a lot of walls for her community and for her peers. So I'm sure you will really enjoy this awesome and lovely conversation. Hi, Abigail.
Hi, how are you? Good morning.
Well, good morning.
Here, good morning.
Yes, it is. Yeah, we got a little time difference going on, but I feel like I'm getting better with that. Like when the first, things of 2020 happened and we were all Zooming with everyone across the United States, I was constantly like, wait, what time zone are we in? I think even when we first connected, it was like we had a little bit of a snafu on my end because I was just still a little wonky with that. And then we had this fallback thing, and now it's, I don't know, I'm relearning it all over again.
Me too, but I'm glad we got an hour back. I was like, I really need that extra sleep.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, this is the time change that I often enjoy because we do get that extra hour of sleep. Beautiful Abigail, you are here. And of course, if people are watching this on YouTube or Facebook, they can see that you are wearing a stunning crown and some beautiful earrings, a wonderful sash. So let's talk about that first. If you're watching this, just trust me, she's absolutely gorgeous. But tell me, so you're Miss Maryland Petite right now. You have that title. So tell me a little bit about that, maybe your experience in pageantry. That's kind of how we got connected, was through the world of pageantry. So tell me a little bit about your title, some of maybe the highlights of your reign, and like the platform that you're working on promoting with this title right now.
Thank you so much. And I'm really happy we were able to meet in the world of pageantry. So my start was a little late. I actually just started, and it's something that was kind of on my bucket list. And I was like, there's no reason not to try it. And so my first pageant was Miss Maryland USA. And I think our Miss Maryland is doing great. I know Miss USA is coming up soon and Miss Universe, so I can't wait to watch it. But that was really my first time doing pageantry this past summer. And I really loved just being able to meet so many incredible women, like whether they have their own nonprofits or their own businesses or are really making an impact in their community. I feel like it was such a nice experience. And for me, what really drew me to it was being able to step out of my comfort zone, which is something that has been hard for me because I'm actually pretty shy. So I know, I know like when I meet people, sometimes it doesn't seem that way just because with my title, like, I'm very outgoing and I put myself out there. But it really helped me grow in that way. And what I was really drawn to was having a platform in advocacy. So I found the Miss USA Petite pageant, and I thought it would just be a wonderful opportunity. So I applied, and I think it's gone really great. I'm so grateful. Like I actually didn't think I would be Miss Maryland Petite, but for me, it's just so important to be in a pageant that recognizes all women, and I think all different types of beauty, because I think as a petite woman, sometimes it's really hard in like the fashion or the beauty world where we're not always represented. So being able to be Miss Maryland Petite has been really wonderful, and our pageant director is great. And I think it's been a wonderful experience because I actually met sister queens at Miss Maryland USA, and I'm still in touch with a lot of them. And two of them are current petite title holders. So we were actually able to do an anti-bullying event that I hosted and different events like that. And so it's been really nice being able to use my platform to try to help others. And my platform is health, higher education, and social justice. So that's really what it's about. But thank you for asking.
Yeah, of course. Wow. It seems like there's a lot of elements there in your platform, which is really cool, right? The health and the wellness and, how we, I think, show up like in a way towards society is important that we take care of ourselves first, right? In a way, because we can then help others when we're our healthiest and our best selves. And I love that element of social justice in there. So kind of tell me, maybe, because I know this is going to tie into a little bit of your graduate studies here that we're talking about. So like what inspired you to maybe connect that with the health part of it, and how do you see that coming together?
Thank you. I think that's a great question. Thanks for asking. So what really drew me to my platform was my own experiences and like my own challenges and struggles. And I wanted to highlight that for anyone struggling with the same thing, that they're not alone. So that's what really drew me to that. So for the health aspect, so I've struggled with mental health, and I feel like there is a stigma attached to that. But for me, just being a domestic violence survivor, like, I had mental health issues because of that. But I've gone to therapy and I'm doing healing work, and I think there shouldn't be a stigma attached to that. So I really wanted to show that it's okay, like to not be okay. It's okay to seek help. It's not a sign of weakness. And it affects a lot of people all over the world. And I think health really became a forefront during the pandemic. And then it also ties into physical health because this ties into like my graduate studies too. But for me, like going through school, and this ties into my higher education aspect, it was sometimes very hard to like take care of my health and be in school at the same time, just like working multiple jobs to like pay for my education, and having to take so many classes. It could be very hard. And so for me, also going through your breast cancer scare last year at the age of 21 really, yeah, it really inspired me to speak on it. I haven't formally posted on my petite page yet, but I will soon. But pretty much, long story short, I had a fibroadenoma. Luckily, it was benign, but it was a pretty stressful experience, like finding a lump, and having a breast cancer scare and going through surgery and doing that while finishing up school. So I wanted to just help people be more aware of these issues that can impact them, because, even if you're young, it could still impact you. So that's what really drew me to that. And as far as higher education, so right now I'm doing my PhD at the University of Maryland in communication. And I'm so grateful for my department and my program because this is something, I didn't really think would be achievable for someone like me, as like a Latina woman. Like I didn't really see a lot of people like me in those programs or those positions. And knowing that there's this disparity in underrepresentation really inspired me to help others. So right now I'm managing school, so it's been a little hard, but I have helped my friends and peers find scholarships, resources, navigate the higher education process. Like, here's some tips to save money. Like, you can write your books. These are state grants that are not always advertised in schools. So for me, since I know and I've had a lot of challenges navigating the higher education process, I try to help others so they don't have to go through the same thing or they can navigate it as well. And social justice is something I've always been passionate about. I think being an advocate and using your voice is really important. So that's something that's really important to me, and why I'm very grateful for the Petite USA pageant, because they really encourage that and they want me to use my voice and all the title holders. And that's something that ties into my research, where I like to do research on underprivileged and underrepresented communities and media representation in my community, the Latinx community. But thank you for asking.
Yeah, of course. Oh my gosh. Wow. I feel like you have so much to share. And I was just listening to you talk about your breast cancer scare. That is very young to go through something like that. I had not as probably serious as a situation, but I had a similar, situation years ago. And yeah, just I think like the mental anguish and stuff that goes along with that, a lot of unknowns and things like that. So I really commend you for, taking that situation and turning it around to something empowering now that you can help other people through. One of the things that you had mentioned that stuck out to me, I wanted to ask you on was what's that idea of being Latina or Latinx in this both this pageantry world and also in the higher education world, right? And what was it like growing up for you? I mean, did you have role models that you saw like in your culture that did pageantry, or was this something like uncharted territory for you altogether? Or what was your experience being of that culture and doing pageantry?
Thank you. Thank you. I want to say I'm sorry you went through a similar experience. I'm happy you're okay, and I'm proud of you, like, for, inspiring others with all of your stories. And but yeah, so that's a great question. So for me, so there's two aspects to the question, right? Like in pageantry and then higher education.
Right. Yeah. So maybe I guess go into pageantry first, maybe, and then we'll kind of segue into the education part of it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I'm originally from Puerto Rico. My family's from there. Like I grew up there, until I was 5, and I would visit every summer and live with my grandparents. So I'm originally from iOS, and pageantry is actually really, really big in Puerto Rico. Like we have a lot of beauty queens. We have a lot of pride, and it's really a way for all of us to get together and to be able to represent our island. So I think looking back, it's something I always like deep down wanted to do, but it's just I didn't know I would be able to, like, especially being petite and not really knowing anyone directly in that world. It was something that, was kind of this new journey for me. But I'm happy that I did it because it's really been a wonderful experience, and I hope I can inspire others to try something that challenges them or that they really want to do. But I did grow up seeing a lot of pageants and beauty queens. But as far as like here, like living in the mainland US, it's not something that I thought I could really do, because growing up, we have a lot of artists from Puerto Rico that, are wonderful. And I have a great sense of pride just hearing like music from my island and things like that. But as far as like, I guess the traditional standards of beauty, I would never really felt represented in that way. So it's something that I didn't know I could do. But I think, everyone is beautiful in their own way and every culture is beautiful. And I'm very happy to be able to share my culture as well with my title.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I feel like you're a good representative of sort of like maybe not the underdog, but the population of people that maybe doesn't typically see themselves in these realms, just because like, culturally and societally, right, there maybe are not a lot of petite women doing pageantry or modeling, or maybe a lot of people from that culture even pursuing higher education and things like that. So being able to forge that path and then be such a great role model to people in that way is really admirable, and I just want to honor you for that. That's really, really cool. So how do you feel that pageantry, or do you feel that pageantry has inspired some of the things you're doing now in higher education, or like how did that fit together? Did you know that you wanted to do this PhD program before you did pageants, or did one follow the other? What was that process like?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so, and I can tie in the other question. I realized I didn't answer it, but about being Latina in my grad program. But so no, it's actually, so for the PhD program, it kind of ties in back to not really knowing if it's something that I could do, just because again, so I will say specifically like for the Latinx community, um, like with a lot of other marginalized communities, there are a lot of barriers to higher education. So I will say I recognize my privilege, and I know I'm very lucky because I, am born with citizenship status, being from Puerto Rico. But a lot of my friends who are in that community like are either undocumented or they're dreamers, or they're first generation, and there are just so many barriers, like whether it's like having to navigate, learning in a second language, because a lot of us are native Spanish speakers, even though we grew up learning Spanish or learning English here, it's still challenging sometimes, as well as not being able to access resources based on status, or not being able to have mentors if they're first generation students who really have navigated that college experience. And then also like additional costs, because I've had friends who simply because of their status had to pay 3 times the tuition because they were considered international students, even though they've lived here, pretty much their whole lives. So kind of that being in the backdrop, and in just based on my community, like I think that's why there is a lot of underrepresentation, not only in graduate school, but just in higher education in general. But that's why for me, like education has been something I've always been passionate about. And my mom always instilled in me that no one can take your education away. Like, she really taught me to be an independent woman. And that's something I try to help others achieve, like just be independent, and also if they choose to be in higher education, to help them with resources. But pretty much, I think all of those things kind of happening in to give context, that's why I didn't see anyone really look like me in a PhD program. I will say my program, there are 2 other Latinx students, and everyone's really great. I love the other students, and I've also been able to really bond with them because we share very similar experiences. But I think, I don't know if it's like society, but I think sometimes for me, it felt like I wasn't really taught that this was an attainable goal. Like it wasn't really something mentioned like when I was in classrooms, or navigating that college experience. So I think I just try to inspire others that there's really no challenge you can't overcome. But I'm very grateful along the way. I've also had mentors that have really helped me and have given back, who've also gone through the same experience. So that's something I try to do as well. Like, I'm very grateful to be in this program, but I think there should be more people like me or who have also struggled to be in those programs as well. So I try to give back.
Yeah, and you are. I feel like you're doing it just in being who you are, right? Being someone who is pursuing not only this PhD, but also the limelight really as a pageant queen and a title holder. And so, I can sense that you're a high achiever. So it's great that you're using this, position that you have as Miss Maryland Petite to say, hey, like, look, there are women like us who are, high achievers and we want to do things. And, I see that this is not a great, that this population isn't greatly represented in these ways. So, yeah, I think just sometimes by being who we are, we're inspiring and motivating and sort of like forging that path, right? You're obviously actively doing those things too as a title holder, but I think too, just being who you are and being open to mentoring people that come into your life along the way is also going to be really, really helpful. Um, so tell me more about the PhD program that you're doing is in communication. So we did talk about that. I have a communication background as well, and I think we even laughed when we had spoken on the phone, was it maybe a month ago now, that when I was in school, this was quite a while ago now, that I think I used MySpace, which shows just how outdated this research was. But at the time, my friend and I were seeing that people were representing themselves online so much differently than they were in real life. And so, like, our thesis for one of our papers was, this how women, specifically young women, are representing themselves online. And we just did a deep dive into that and sort of the psychology behind the communication strategies and everything like that. So like, obviously social media is so different now than it was, when we did this 10, 12 years ago. And I guess I'm really interested from a person in your generation, in your position, what you're doing now with this PhD, like, what is this connection that you're seeing maybe, between social justice and social media, and like, how is this all coming together? How can you kind of shed light on this for somebody who, for me, I'm still like a Facebook, Instagram person, right? So like, what is this world, and how do we maybe navigate this in that way of like finding ways to support people in social justice with social media and all those things?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I just want to say, like, yay, go calm. Like, I love studying communication, and I really enjoyed having that conversation with you. But yeah, so right now I'm doing my PhD in communication science and social cognition, and at the University of Maryland. And I'm actually taking an intercultural communication class right now. And this is something that we were just talking about in lecture. So we were talking about community building and identity and indirect and direct communication with other people, not only in person, but also online. So I think that's something that I've seen and we've seen, just doing research and reading articles, that especially with the pandemic, with so many things being online, people have felt like they can build community on these social platforms and on these online spaces. And I think it's really nice. I think that's one really nice aspect of social media, where we can still feel connected to each other, even when we were quarantined or isolated. And as far as the social justice question, so one question I had that I just asked in my intergroup communication class, and I want to give a special shout out to my advisor who teaches that class, and who's my advisor in the program, Dr. Anita Atwell-Seat. She's wonderful. And so something I asked in that class was, do we have like different identities online or in person, or are they different facets of our identity? And we kind of, I feel like we had a similar discussion where, for example, like, I'm actually, I can be pretty shy, but I think social media has allowed me to feel a little more, comfortable, because it's like, I think of what I want to post, like the message I want to send out, and it's still a message that I really in real life, but I guess it's not as like anxiety inducing for me. Like, I do have anxiety, so sometimes just meeting new people can be a little scary for me. But I think as far as like the social justice aspect, I think it's really nice that we could see these movements and really be able to hear stories from all around the world that we may not have been exposed to, if it weren't for these online spaces. So I think, it's still really important to, we also talk about media literacy in that class. I think media literacy is very important, and, looking at reliable news sources, but also being able to see these movements and hear these stories, on social media and on these online spaces is really important, as well.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, one of the things that we had studied back in my communication studies in college was sort of that idea of like going back to ancient Greece and ancient Rome when, people would gather in these communal spaces and then it was sort of like the water cooler, right? Where people in like a work environment would gather around the water cooler or whatever, right? And sort of talk about things, right? Talk about issues, talk about something that happened in the news, talk about things going on in the world. And, really like that's what pushed democracy forward, like, right? That's what pushed human development and our societies and culture and things forward was the ability for people to come together and have conversations, right, in the public sphere. And then you would have people that had ideas and people would support those ideas. And then those people would maybe lead a movement or something like that, right? So I think the more we get connected to our devices and the less we are, right, looking up sort of and having these conversations in real life, we've had to learn. And I think maybe I feel like we're maybe coming out the other end of this, right? But I think there were some growing pains with people not being able to have those human interactions. And then COVID, right? Like obviously was a huge catalyst to push that in that direction even more, right? Now that people aren't going to work every day or school every day or meeting with these like groups in public on a daily basis, right? We had to find somewhere else to communicate our ideas and have these conversations. So I'm curious, I guess, from someone in your generation and your perspective, you're a bit younger than me. And, social media has been such a part of your life, I think, just growing up, right? Whereas for me, it was something that it was introduced to me. I was already an adult when, 18, but like I was already, I had gone through a lot of things by the time this was a part of my life. So how do you see that maybe affecting your generation specifically? And like, where do you see those conversations happening? I would love to get your unique perspective on that, Abigail.
Yeah, thank you for asking. So I guess I have like a two-part answer for that. So as far as having these online spaces to talk about important issues, I think it's very important, but I also agree that they're conversations that should also be happening in person. And one thing that kind of comes to mind is performative activism, where like it's kind of this theory that some people like may post something but may not actually actively do that in their day-to-day life. So I think practicing that and really also applying that into real life is very important, and that's the way like we see change and growth. And as far as the other question about growing up with social media, so is your question like growing up with social media, like my opinion on it or how it has changed how we interacted? I just want to make sure I'm answering your question.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of both. So, like growing up with social media, like what was that like for you? I mean, I guess this is a hard question to communicate because I can clearly see a line that happened for me between a period of time before we had it and then the transition into having it. And so I often think how difficult it would have been to be in like middle school, for instance, right? Or high school, and have like this place where I needed to, show up and be a version of myself. And so what's that like maybe in those transitions from, adolescence to high school, and now you're in, college and higher education? Like, how has it been? Let's start here. How has it been maybe a positive thing for you to have that as part of your life?
Okay, yeah, thank you. So I will say I I guess I kind of have like a unique experience because, and I will say, looking back in retrospect, I understand like why my parents kind of wanted this, but I actually wasn't allowed to have social media like in high school or like growing up. So yeah, I actually didn't have it until I was 18 and I finished high school.
Oh,
So I
wow.
yeah, so
Kudos
I
to your parents.
yeah, so I know not everyone has that experience, but I also can clearly remember just not having it and now having it. And I think it's very nuanced, it's very multifaceted. So I will say this is so interesting that we're talking about it because so as a PhD student, I'm also a graduate teaching assistant. So I'm the instructor on record, and I teach public speaking. And one of my students actually, some of my students did a speech on social media, and I thought it was so interesting because they're a little younger than me. And also seeing how they grew up seeing social media, a lot of them were also talking about some of the negative aspects and in about it. So I think to add on to that, it's very multifaceted. I think on the positive, it's really nice for community building. It's really nice for people to feel like they have a space where they can be themselves, where maybe in real life they don't really have a great support system or they can't feel like they can truly express themselves. I also think it's really nice just to connect with people all over the world and especially during the pandemic and during COVID. But I also like noticed, I also have that clear divide when I had it, when I started social media and when I didn't have it. I will say, looking back, I'm kind of glad I didn't have it in high school. And that's just my experience because I didn't have it. So I don't really have anything to compare it to, but I see a lot of what the negative aspects are when it comes to self-esteem and cyberbullying and kind of societal pressures and where it can lead to people having like body image issues and anxiety and depression and things like that. I think those are really important things to combat and to acknowledge. So I think not having that experience in high school, I think one thing that was nice is not feeling like I have to be attached to my phone all the time. And I think now, especially with like, for example, like um, teaching during COVID, where a lot of communication is online, even though I'm teaching a person and being a student online, it's been very, very hard to have that separation between work and life balance and like, you know, the stop between like social media and like posting and just really taking time for yourself. And so actually recently, last weekend, I took a mental health trip and I went with my boyfriend. He's also my best friend. His name is Rob. And we actually went to the Appalachian Mountains. We went to Shenandoah National Park. And I thought it was funny because when we got to it was like kind of like a mountain lodge. When we got there, we had no service. And I was like, oh my goodness, like we don't have service. Like I don't know what to do. But luckily, we were able to connect to the Wi-Fi. But after just spending a few days in the mountains and in nature, like it was so nice to disconnect. And I actually like since then I've just been trying to take a social media break, which can be hard, but I think as far as social media, there's always kind of good and bad effects to it. I really like that I can share my platform and connect with people that way. But it is also hard you know, to, I guess, feel like you have to be on there all the time.
Mm.
Like it can be very hard. So one thing I do is I try to take social media breaks and set aside time for myself and like not being on my phone and putting a timer on or like putting my phone on do not disturb. And yeah, it
Good
helps
for
me.
you.
Yeah, it helps me. So everyone's different, but I think if it gets to the point where people are not feeling that great about themselves or like are comparing themselves, like then it's okay to take a break. And so I do try to take breaks.
Yeah. Oh, that is so insightful. I love it. I love it. So you referred to that trip as sort of a mental health trip. So I'm curious, what inspired that? Were you feeling overwhelmed? Like, how did you get to that point where you're like, you know what, we need a trip to the mountains? What was that?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I mean, kind of all of the above. Like it was, I believe I had just finished up midterms. And I was just like, like school can be a lot and it could be very, very draining. But one thing for just to give some context, so one thing I really like that my program has told us, especially as like first year students, and I also want to say, so I just graduated with my bachelor's, so I went like straight from BA to PhD, and it could be hard to navigate that, but they've given us a lot of guidance. And one thing that my program has really told us is that academia can really take up your whole life. Like it can take up all of your time because there's always something to read, there's always something to research. Like, it can really never end. So it's really important to set those boundaries and to also take time for yourself. And my advisor she's amazing. Like the first thing she will ask when we get into class is, how are you doing? Not as a scholar, not as a student. How are you as Abby, a person? Like, how are you as Crystal, a person doing? And it's really nice. And so just kind of all of that, just going through midterms and college stress, I just decided it would be nice to do a trip. And my boyfriend, he was able to get a vacation from his job because he's also studying and working, and it could be a lot, but it just coincided and it was really nice. We were able to go apple picking and see the mountains and see fall and do s'mores and be outside. And I think everyone should just try to take a break when they're able to.
Yes. Oh my gosh, such a great insight. And what a great lesson to learn early in life. And how amazing that your advisors are so aware of that, aware of the pressure that's on you. And my goodness, I mean, you're not just a student, like, you're teaching also, you're this title holder, you're doing all these amazing things, right? So I commend you for like giving yourself some grace and just saying like, I just need a break. Just need to unplug for a minute. So, yeah, I think that's okay. Right. And I loved that you use that word, boundaries. I talk about that a lot with my coaching clients, that just putting a boundary around something is really important. And I think you even touched on this earlier, sort of that, like, now that we are living more online and things are very virtual, and so like, where do we draw that line in the work-life balance and the study life balance? And there's always something to learn, right? And I don't think you have to be in higher education to continue learning. Like, I hope that everybody continues learning. Like, that's part of the reason I do this podcast, is so I can learn and my listeners can learn. So I love that too. Like, just knowing like there's a time to work and a time to rest, right? It even says that in the Bible for us. So so I really commend you for taking that time and doing that. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So Abigail, I just want to well, not real quick, but like, before I forget to touch on this, you were sharing something with me very exciting when we first started the call, that you just got signed as the petite model. So this is very cool. We were joking before we hit record that like, modeling was always something that like I always kind of fell in this weird in between. So I'm 5'7", I'm not quite tall enough to be runway, but a little too tall to do some print stuff. So, but I love this idea of like specifically a petite model. So like, tell me a little bit about that. Like, maybe what inspired you to want to look for that opportunity, and what that's been like.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So, you're actually like the first person I officially tell, like besides my family and my close friends.
Oh my gosh, I feel so honored.
Thank you, because I just found out literally like this past week. But yeah, so it's something I just always wanted to do. And I remember like my first kind of fashion show was in 7th grade. I don't know if it counts, but I think it counts. And so I was in like,
Oh, it does. It counts.
Thank you. Thank you. I was in it was called like a trash for fashion show because we were actually using recyclable materials and eco-friendly materials to design our own outfits and then walk on a runway. And I remember I did that and I had so much fun. And this was back when I was like considered tall for my age, like because I had like a growth spurt and then it just stopped growing. So this is when I was
Oh
like
my gosh.
12, 13. Mm-hmm. So, back then I was like, oh, I think I could do this and this is really fun. And then I kind of just stopped growing. And I think just hearing that, oh, you have to be like 5'9" or 6 feet tall, like, it's only for tall people. I didn't realize how much that kind of discouraged me, but I realized that kind of dream was like very dwindled and I just didn't really pay attention to it. And it wasn't until recently where, being able to be this title holder, which is such a great honor, I was able to come in contact with Arkea, and she is the manager of Hot Models and Talent Agency, headquartered in Atlanta, and they're actually an official sponsor of Petite USA. So when I was like, yeah, when I was kind of looking at like, oh, I would really love to work with different businesses and sponsors. When I was kind of doing that research, I found out about Hot Models and Talent Agency. And what really stood out to me is that they had a petite division. They have like a petite division of fitness, like lifestyle, curvy. And I think just seeing representation of different body types and a lot of diversity was just so empowering. And so I decided to apply and I didn't know how it would go. But so I just sent my application and so I will say like I didn't even have like an official digital portfolio. I was like, here's some pageant pictures. I think these look nice. Here are some other pictures. And I just sent those in and then she was like, okay, thank you. We'll get back to you with the interview. If we're interested, like for you to be one of our models. And then I get the email for the interview and I was like, oh my goodness. And it was only like a 10-minute interview, but I was like, the whole day was just prepping for that, like making
Mhm.
sure I was ready and making sure I looked nice and like I was prepared. And it was really great. Like she had pretty much asked me like, oh, what kind of drew you into this and why do you want to do this? And I pretty much told her the same thing. Like it's something I've always wanted to do, but I didn't know about a petite division or, when I would look at other modeling agencies, it's very clear, like it's very specific. You have to be this height or you can't apply. So I think yeah, just seeing that really encouraged me. And so I recently just got signed, like I just found out this past week. So I'm so excited. And for me, it's just so meaningful because I'm very grateful for Arkea, very grateful for Jenna, our pageant director, because like being in this world like fashion and beauty, like I didn't see myself represented growing up. So for me, media representation is so important and it's something I study in my research and in my PhD because it impacts so many people. So if I can inspire someone, if they don't fit in the traditional like mold, that's okay. And it's okay to be yourself. You should be yourself. And I think the fashion industry is slowly changing. Like I think now they're being more inclusive of different people. And I think it's moving in the right direction. So I'm very happy to be, a petite model like during this time, especially.
Yeah. Oh, that is so cool. And I completely agree with you that having the ability to like actually pursue that and like, what you're studying in school is about, right, this sort of like social representation of like a different culture and how can we like move that forward, and you're doing it right here's a great example again what we talked about earlier. Like you don't have to necessarily stand on a stage and talk about it. Like you just living this is you talking about it, right? Through what you're doing and then sharing that on social media is going to tell people like, oh wow, look at this girl, look at Abigail. She's like me. She's, and she's doing it, right? So it's so cool. I think we often forget that how simple it is to be a role model or inspiring to someone else. We think that we all need to wear a crown and a sash, which, I mean, some people do, right? But some people that's not how they'll do it, right? Some people it's just simply that, just simply doing it and doing the work and then putting it out there for others to see. So you're doing all of that. So how cool is that?
Thank you. And I want to add on to that. I think you're an amazing role model, and with your podcast and, as a coach, helping, directly impacting lives. But I also think, I really like your comment about like the crown and sash. Like, you don't need to do that if it's not for you, if you don't like it, like, you don't have to be a role model in that way. But I want to add that even when I'm not wearing this, or like I'm not dressed up, and I actually usually don't wear makeup. Like, I just had to learn how to wear makeup for my first pageant this summer. And one of my great friends, Angie, who's a makeup artist, she taught me and took the time to teach me, and her family like let me borrow dresses and things like that. But I'm actually usually like not this dressed up. But I think kind of going back to like the social media question and like, that separation, like even when I'm not like Miss Maryland Petite, I'm not using my title at the moment, I still try to be a role model. And I just made that connection in my head.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And you're right. It's not, you don't have to be glamorous 24/7, right? Like that's not real either. So I think for people to see that side of you is important too, that we don't always have to show up camera ready and perfect. Like we can just be ourselves. And I have seen that change too, right? Like as we're talking about sort of the transformation of social media over the past decade or so, like I think that is happening more too, where people are almost encouraged to show up as this is just me, I'm just me today. So that's really cool. That's really cool. I love that. So are you, I forgot, are you competing in a national pageant? Is that coming up? So maybe just tell us about that. Tell our listeners and viewers where they can find you, how they can support you, what you're doing, your platform, and all of that good stuff.
Thank you so much. Yes, so all of the title holders for Petite USA will be competing at the national pageant in the summer. So we still have a nice time where I think we can really make use of our platform and be able to help our local communities, and being able to be a title holder until that national competition. But thank you. Yes, so my social media handles are Miss Maryland Petite. So Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. For Twitter, it was taken, so it's Petite Maryland, Maryland Petite. And then so I have my LinkedIn page. Like I have a link tree with all of my social media handles, and you could just find me at Miss Maryland Petite. But thank you. Yes, so that's it. It really means a lot that you said that, but any support would really help, and that's where you can find me.
Perfect. Yes. And I will link that. I always link that below, like in the show notes, no matter if this is just audio or video. So they'll be able to find that as well. So gosh, wow, Abigail, this has been amazing. I can't believe this time just flew by. So I am excited. I follow you on social media, of course, and I always love seeing your posts and what you're doing. And I just really commend you and celebrate you for, being such a great voice in your generation for your culture and women. And I just, you're just so stunning. And it's just, I know that God has amazing plans for you. This is just the beginning. So very, very excited to be connected with you and hope to be connected with you for a very long time.
That means so much. Thank you. And I can't believe it's been, let me see. Oh, it's been like almost an hour. Like
I know.
Yeah, I can talk for hours. I can talk for days. And I really enjoyed just having this conversation. And I'm so honored to be a guest on your podcast, on your show. I would love to connect more in the future. And I'm very grateful I met you.
Yes, likewise. Women gotta stick together, right? We all gotta help each other rise in this world. And so I just love when I can have beautiful people inside and out on my show like you. And I know that you're out there doing the same mission I am, right? Lifting people up and just doing good work in the world. So Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
And yeah, we'll be connected soon, I'm sure.
Have a great day. Thank
You
you.
too. Bye. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. If someone you love would benefit from this message, please, please share this podcast with them. And if you want more out of your life, not just surviving every day, but you want to truly thrive, visit me at crystallizedhealthadvisors.com or on Facebook to schedule your free dream strategy call with me today. Do not hesitate any longer. Life is short, and I want you to truly live the playful life. I will see you next time, and as always, stay playful.